Hello, I'm Coach Kyle. Welcome back to our chronic pain video series. This is video number two, where we're going to begin to talk about what chronic pain is, how it happens. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you to watch the first video, where I'll give you kind of a basic understanding of how pain works in general. Um, Otherwise, some of the what we're going to talk about in this video might not make as much sense. Unless you're a pain expert, obviously, then feel free to start here. So chronic pain. What is first? Let's start with what does chronic pain mean? So, kind of the definition of chronic pain is any pain that lasts longer than 3 months. Okay, it's a quite simplistic definition, um, but that's kind of where we start looking at pain as if it might be what we're talking about as chronic pain, because you know most types of tissue in the body heal within that span of time. So if we had a major injury, chances are it's going to be healed within 3 months. There are exceptions to that rule, obviously, but for the most part, anything hurting for longer than 3 months is not normal. It is beyond our normal window of healing. So we talked last time about kind of the process of pain. So how does pain become chronic? Because in the normal process of pain, what's triggering that pain was an injury, typically, or a threat of an injury. And if it was an actual injury, it has since healed. So, what's continuing to trigger the cycle of pain? That's the big question, right? So, I think the best way to explain this is to walk through several common kind of pathways into chronic pain, because um, there's not one way that chronic pain happens. There's actually a lot of different ways that chronic pain can happen, but I'll do a few common ones that'll kind of demonstrate the concept. Okay. So I think one of the most common is chronic pain that actually starts with a real physical injury. Okay. So let's say I fall and I break my arm. I broke a bone, caused an intense amount of pain through the process we talked about last video. Um, that's normal. That's expected, right? I go to the doctor. I get my arm, set back in place, cast it up. Over several weeks, that arm heals. That bone fuses back together. Um, Normally, the pain would then go away. But let's say in this case, the pain persisted. I return to the doctor, get the cast taken off. Arm still hurts. I ask the doctor about it. They say, well, just give us some time, which oftentimes would be sufficient. But I go on, several months later, my arm still hurts. Okay. And it just kind of persists this way. It never seems to fully go away. And I tell myself things like, these are things I hear a lot, like it just didn't heal right, it didn't set right, which are all things that don't really cause pain. Even if my arm healed, at some weird angle, it still shouldn't cause pain. It might not work as well, but it shouldn't cause pain. So why am I still in pain? Um, let's continue the scenario, and then we'll come back and describe why this is happening. And this is, common things we see all the time with chronic pain. So I continue carrying on about my life. My arm hurts. It's not destroying my life or anything. So I keep, carrying on. And then, bam, one day my shoulder starts to hurt. Right. And I'm like, well, I don't remember hurting my shoulder. I let it go a week or two. It doesn't improve. Then I go to the doctor, get it checked out. You know, the doc tells me they can't find anything wrong. They don't understand why I'm in pain. I go to the specialist. They tell me the same thing. I get x-rays, MRI scans, all this stuff done. Nobody can tell me a reason for my shoulder to hurt. Or maybe they find some insignificant abnormality or some minuscule little tear or something like that that still doesn't really explain why I'm in the amount of pain I am. So eventually I get frustrated. I give up on that. I go back to living my life as well as I can in my condition. And then, maybe a year or two or a few years later down the road, now suddenly my knee hurts. And I go through that same process again. I go to the doctor. They're like, we don't see anything wrong. I go to a specialist, maybe two or three specialists, just looking for answers, right? And nobody can see a problem. And then I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to question my own sanity. Am I crazy? Am I making this up somehow? Is all this pain in my head? Um, Maybe I've even been told that by doctors or clinicians or somebody or family members, even like, just get over it. There's nothing wrong with you. um, so eventually I reach a level of so much frustration and stress and that I can't live my life anymore. I'm trapped in my home, not able to do much of anything. Um, and we'll end our scenario there. And this is a scenario that I see time and time again. So let's back up. Okay. We had the initial injury, broke my arm. That injury healed, the bone healed, the tissues healed, yet the pain persisted. Why? So let's back up to our previous discussion about how pain works. Pain is an alarm. It's a signal, it's a warning that there's danger. Okay. Well, the danger at the very beginning was I broke a bone, right? However, breaking my arm caused a lot of additional stress in my life. I had to take time off work to let it heal. I had difficulty paying the bills as a result. It caused a lot of undue stress. Okay. So this is kind of the key moment in the development of chronic pain. So again, all this stress, your brain's seeing that as well, and it's recognizing that pattern of danger. At the same time, your brain is still also worried about the danger of your broken arm and is still sending you pain. Okay, that's where now it's developed. This doesn't always happen. I know injuries are always stressful, right? This doesn't happen to everyone. And why it happens to some people and not others, we really don't know. And there's likely a lot of variables involved in why that happens. But so we're under a lot of stress, and we're dealing with a physical injury that's causing pain. So what happens is the brain learns to associate stress with pain. Okay. So it's may start reacting to the stress by increasing the pain in my arm. And then as that arm heals, it just keeps that pain in my arm going as the way it's now warning me about my stress. Okay. So our brain's always learning, and it can make associations between things, and pain and stress is a common one. It doesn't necessarily have to be stress, but that's the example we're using. So now my brain has learned stress equals pain. We're going to alert us about stress with pain. So fast forward, a lot of time goes by. Okay. And as my brain keeps doing this, it keeps using pain in this way. Well, anytime the brain does anything, it's using neural circuits, neural pathways. And these are just strings of neural connections in our brain that once connected, they fire that electrical signal and something happens. Everything we do is through these neural circuits or pathways. Now, the interesting thing about neural circuits is the more they get used, the more frequently they're used, the stronger they get. The easier it is to fire that circuit. So over time, with our brain using stress, the signal of stress to fire the experience of pain, it's firing that neural circuit associated with it. And every time it does it, every day it's doing it, that circuit gets stronger. Okay. So over time, it's going to take less stress to trigger that circuit. Okay. So this is key. This is how we get kind of stuck. This is how chronic pain becomes chronic. we get stuck in a pattern because the circuits in our brain associated with this process have become so strengthened that it takes next to nothing to trigger that response. So let's use an example of something else we learn, like learning how to ride a bike. When we first try to learn how to ride a bike, it's really hard. We fall down a lot. We got to put a lot of conscious effort into all the mechanical motions of riding a bike, how to pedal, how to balance, how to steer. But as we practice, we strengthen the neural circuits associated with riding a bike. And eventually we get to a point where we just jump on the bike and tend to go, and it happens. We don't think about it anymore. We just do it. Okay. So our brain using pain as an alarm for stress is no different. It get better at it over time. And with very strengthened neural circuits, it takes less of a trigger or nudge or whatever, kind of triggers that action. It takes less of that to set it into motion. So all the stress of breaking my arm, having to take time off work, financial problems has since passed. Maybe my level of stress has greatly decreased, but my arm is still hurting. Okay, now we fast forward some time later. Some other event happens in my life that's stressful. Maybe I lost my job. Maybe it's a death in the family. Something incredibly stressful happens. And now that my brain is using pain to signal stress, and that neural circuit has become strong, now this super higher level of stress comes along, and your brain's like, whoa, this is not good. This is dangerous. We have to turn up the volume on this alarm or come up with a new alarm. So my brain decides to create pain in my shoulder now as a way to warn me about the stress. Okay. Now, the same process is happening. Stress is what's triggering all this. There's nothing wrong physically in my shoulder, nothing at all. It's perfectly fine. That's why the doctors can't find anything, because there's nothing there to find. Now, again, now we created a new neural circuit in using pain to signal stress, to warn about stress, creating pain in my shoulder. Well, the same thing happens over time. That neural circuit gets stronger. And the stress of whatever event that started that settles down, goes away, but the pain remains because it's taking less and less stress to trigger that. And let's be honest, we can never fully avoid stress. And honestly, I don't know that we would want to, because stress is, helpful in a lot of ways too. So fast forward again, forward into the future here, another stressful event happens. Maybe this time it's something good, something positive that's still causing stress. Maybe I got a big promotion at work, a new role, all new responsibilities, a lot of stress as a result. But it's good stuff, right? Now my knee starts to hurt. What the heck? Because my brain saw that huge increase in stress. It's like, well, the arm, the shoulder aren't working. So we need to do something different. We need to adapt to this new level of danger. I know that the brain now likes to use pain, so it's going to create pain in my knee suddenly. And the cycle goes on and on and on. This is how chronic pain a lot of times kind of progresses. It starts as one thing, and maybe at this point the pain in my arm has gone away even, and now it's just the shoulder and the knee, or sometimes everything previously sticks around. So it's always different for everybody. There's not one path into chronic pain, but you're getting the idea of how this happens. Okay, so basically your brain starts using pain through some process of learning, associates it with something else, some other kind of danger other than physical bodily damage. And those neural circuits become stronger over time, and then it just gets stuck in the on position. Another common pathway into chronic pain is so let's create a scenario where I, as a child, say in first grade, I'm sexually molested. by someone at school. All right. Now, traumatic event, obviously, I do therapy and, I worked through that eventually. And fast forward, I'm now an adult. That trauma doesn't cause me any problems or anything like that. But now, I'm in a relationship now. Now I have a child of my own. I have a son of my own. And fast forward a little further, they're now in first grade and they're getting ready to go to school. Well, that resemblance to my past trauma that I was in first grade going to school and it happened at school. Now my son is in first grade getting ready to go to school. That similarity in that pattern triggers a response in my brain because my brain sees that pattern too. And it's like, whoa, that pattern is not good. That's dangerous. And as a result, it sounds the alarm, right? And sometimes it chooses pain to sound that alarm. This can also be a lot of other things. It could be suddenly I'm just dealing with intense anxiety and I don't know why. It could be depression. It could be panic attacks. It could be intestinal distress like IBS. It could be constipation. It could be digestive issues. It could be heartburn. It could be all sorts of different things. But the process is the same. It's our brain trying to warn us of danger that it's seeing as a result of patterns it's recognizing. Now, to me, this pattern didn't even occur to me logically, right? I'm just like, where is this pain coming from? What is going on? I go to the doctor, they can't find a reason for it, they can't find anything wrong. And, we go down the same cycle as we described before, where now it keeps happening, the neural circuits strengthen over time, and it just goes from there. So that's another common kind of pathway avenue into chronic pain. I won't do any more kind of examples because I think that demonstrates the idea. Okay. So chronic pain is essentially our brain is warning us of danger that, probably isn't physical damage. Okay, let's do one more example actually. Where maybe the danger, at least part of the danger our brain is seeing is because of an injury or disease or something like that. Okay. Let's say I'll use myself as an example here. I have degenerative disc disease in my lower back. Okay. Now, the nociceptors we talked a lot about before are going to see kind of that degeneration in the discs in my spine. But if I'm also incredibly stressed out and not managing it well, my brain could choose to turn on pain to a much higher level than expected from the actual physical issue I'm dealing with, right? So I'm in like a level 8 pain, but the doctor's looking at my MRI and he's like, why are you in so much pain? This, and a lot of people, this doesn't cause any pain. And if it caused any, it should be mild to moderate. So we can't have actual structural issues going on in the body or disease, but the brain's hugely inflating the amount of pain we experience and the length of time we experience it because it's seeing other forms of danger external to the body and still using pain as a warning or an alarm for those other sources. Okay. So this is kind of how chronic pain happens and how it most of the time gets worse with time. So I think we'll end this video here. Thanks for watching. And in the next video, we'll talk about, we'll probably talk about how kind of the medical care system typically deals with chronic pain and how it's maybe not always the best approach. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.